We are on the tier 5 of the iceberg. We're really getting into the nitty gritty now. This is where things start becoming way less people pleasing. These are where we're entering the more niche style fragrances. These fragrances themselves are going to appeal to a niche, and that's about it. These fragrances on tier 5 are still going to get you compliments. It's just that the scope of people that are going to appreciate these scents are more narrow, and no fragrance epitomizes that more than the first fragrance on tier 5. Chanel Antaeus from 1981. This is a powerfully leathery, mossy, smoky fragrance, and it's notable for the castoreum note, which used to be sourced from animals and now it's synthetic. It is a very love it or hate it fragrance. It is incredibly masculine, very old school as well. If you haven't smelled Antaeus before, try and imagine maybe YSL's Kuros, except more mossy and more animalic, and you've got a rough idea of sort of where Antaeus sort of is. The thing about Antaeus in particular is that it still has a lot of people that love the way this one smells. It still will get you compliments, but just like I said earlier, the scope is more narrow. There aren't going to be many people that come up to you and go, wow, what are you wearing? It smells incredible. We're in that territory now where these are starting to become more fragrances you wear for yourself than for other people. Antaeus is a little different in that you still will get compliments for this one, much the same as you would a YSL Kuros. It's just a more extreme version of that style of fragrance. Anyway, Antaeus is an expensive fragrance. You're going to be paying well over $250 for it. It has a lot of people. There are a lot of people out there that love the way it smells, but there are also a lot of people out there that just can't stand the way it smells because of the animalic and that dark quality to it. Which brings me to the next fragrance on tier 5 from 2002, Comme des Garçons Incense Avignon. This fragrance smells like a church on fire, a Catholic church on fire. It is very smoky. The incense note here is super realistic, super dense, but it has like a freshness to it as well in that opening. It's almost like a green sort of style of freshness. Earthy, green, almost mossy in a way. It's a beautiful smelling fragrance. Similar to Lalique Encre Noir, it's just a more extreme sort of version of it. Very similar, but different still. This fragrance isn't going to be beloved. There are going to be people that do not like the way this one smells. It's going to be too dark, too smoky, too almost medicinal for some people. This is the definition of a fragrance that you wear for yourself and not for other people. Unlike fragrances lower on the list, you will still get compliments for this one, but it's just, like I said, the scope has been narrowed significantly. It is a pricey fragrance as well over $100. It's very difficult to find. If you can get it for $100, definitely pick it up. It's one of those fragrances that I go months without seeing, and then I'll see a couple of bottles for $100, and then I'll go months without seeing, and then I'll see them for $300. It's hit or miss. All of the incense line by Comme des Garçons is very hit and miss when it comes to availability. For the pricing, for the availability, for the uniqueness of the scent, it's at a tier 5. It's much less safe to wear than a Zadig and Voltaire This Is Him or an Encre Noir, for example. But there are going to be people that still like the way this one smells. But with that being said, let's move on to the next fragrance. Next on the list is my personal favorite All Saints fragrance from 2018, Incense City. This starts off very similar to Incense Avignon by Comme des Garçons. It's a similar scent to that. It is dark, it is smoky, it's a little green in the opening, a little balsamic in it. It's got that kind of balsamic vinegar quality almost, kind of woody, kind of dry as it dries down, and I don't know why I'm smelling Incense Avignon, but Incense City, it has a lot of qualities to it that are still going to appeal to some people, but that dense, smoky quality to it as well is going to be off-putting. It's definitely in the vein of those sort of dark, smoky, rock and roll style fragrances. It's a little churchy in the opening. You've got a lot of that green, almost floral quality to it, that mossiness, and then as it dries down, you get an expanded incense note and an expanded smokiness. It isn't going to be for everybody. I love the way it smells. It is an incredible smelling fragrance to my tastes, but it is not going to be for everyone. And I've had much more luck getting compliments for. Zadig and Voltaire's This Is Him, for example, and Nuit d'Issy. We're in that territory now when the incense fragrances, where that smokiness is very dense and it can be a little harsh to some people. I think that both Incense Avignon and Incense City, for example, have a much more nuanced, much more refined smokiness, but it's still going to be a little too dark for most tastes. It's a beautiful smelling fragrance. I love it. I love both of these scents, and that is why it is at a tier 5. It's also hard to find, and when you can find it, it is expensive. So that is another reason why it's at tier 5. Next up, from 2017, we have Gucci Guilty Absolute. How many people out there have bought this Gucci fragrance without smelling it first, thinking that they're going to get amazing compliments for it, and what they do get is a densely decaying leather quality fragrance with Band-Aid. That's what it smells like. It is decaying leather and medicinal, almost iodine, antiseptic Band-Aid. The reason why I've put Gucci Guilty Absolute on tier 5 is because I've met very few people that actually like the way this one smells. That leather note is so realistic, and it so much smells of old, decaying, damp leather. Now, I've got to spray this on my hand. I just have to. A dab will do ya. So sharp. You've got that almost earthy quality. Damp, decaying leather, Band-Aids, antiseptic. It's a niche quality fragrance with a designer label. It's my personal favorite Gucci scent, even though I wear Gucci Guilty Black almost every day. This fragrance is undoubtedly a masterpiece when it comes to designer fragrances. But it is not for everybody. This is going to be off-putting to a lot of people. I was working in a clothing store one day, and I had somebody follow me up the ramp in the clothing store, and they said to me, I don't know what you're wearing, and I can't tell if I love it or hate it, but I can't stop smelling it. And that is Gucci Guilty Absolute in a nutshell. If you want something that is going to turn heads, but not always in a good way, check out Gucci Guilty Absolute. Do not get this if you're just looking for a compliment beast Gucci fragrance. It is nothing like that at all. And finally, from 2007, rounding out the tier 5 list, we have Narciso Rodriguez For Him. This isn't quite as dark as, say, Incense Avignon or Gucci Guilty Absolute, but what it is that it has a deeply musky quality to it. It's very hard to explain. It's sort of like rain on a concrete. It is the definition of an almost gothic smelling fragrance, if you can sort of imagine that. I suppose Incense Avignon would also be a gothic smelling fragrance. But Narciso Rodriguez For Him, it has that deeply musky quality to it. It's aromatic, it's very musky, it's got a kind of damp, wet smell to it, and it also has this aromatic, earthy quality as well. It's definitely not for everybody. There will be some people that like the way it smells, but for the most part, it is going to be something that you're going to wear for yourself. It has often been described as a cozy fragrance. Maybe if you're in a log cabin and it's raining outside and you're comfortable in front of a fire and you're smelling like Narciso Rodriguez For Him, in that situation, I think it would be quite an attractive fragrance. But out and about, if you were smelling a bunch of people at a club with this fragrance, it'd be a little weird, it'd be out of place. This is a fragrance for a time and a place, more so than a lot of other fragrances, and for that reason I've put it at a tier 5. But of everything at tier 5, it is the most gentle, it is the softest at tier 5. But where we're going now, there is no turning back. We're entering the tier 6. This is where things are getting... These fragrances are going to be actively disliked. And honestly, I probably could have put Gucci Guilty Absolute at the tier 6. People dislike the way this one smells. It is not a popular fragrance with anybody but, you know, the fragrance lords like myself. Not that I think of myself as a fragrance lord, but you know what I mean. Those guys that are just talking about fragrances. I only talk about them here, really. Welcome to tier 6. This is where things are getting truly interesting, and we're starting tier 6 with 2010's Montel Oud Musk. This is an absolute beast mode fragrance. If you want a deeply powerful, animalic, leathery, musky, oud based fragrance, look no further than Oud Musk. I've only worn this once because it's simply too strong. For a mortal man such as myself, it's too strong. Good God, that is strong. You can smell it. As soon as you take it out of the packaging, you can smell it. And it's such a well-presented fragrance as well. It looks beautiful. It smells very powerful. If you're after something that smells musky, leathery, and also like oud, then Montel's Oud Musk is going to be for you. You're going to meet a lot of people that do not like the way this one smells. You will occasionally meet somebody that may like it on you, but for the most part it's simply too strong, too powerful, too animalic for all but the most dedicated fragrance lovers out there. Personally, if I smelled this on a person and I identified it as Oud Musk, I'd be super impressed that somebody would leave the house wearing it because it is that strong. Even when you haven't sprayed it, it projects amazingly. That's how strong this one is. It is not going to be for everybody, but that's why it's down on tier 6. If you want to spend 200 bucks on a fragrance that's going to make people think you smell disgusting, go ahead and wear this. I mean, I personally think it smells great, but I'm not everybody. And that is why it's at the tier 6. Next up, from 2018, we've got Mancera's Hindu Kush. This is a deeply smoky, resinous cannabis fragrance. Here it is there. There's a lot to this one that would make me want to put it lower on the list, but I know that smoky quality to it, it's just so strong, it's so powerful that people are going to just despise how strong this one is, how well it projects. It's simply too strong. This, more than anything else on tier 6, could probably have been bumped down to tier 5 maybe, but it's just so strong. As soon as you take that cap off, it is potent. It's in your face with that smoky, that sweet resinous. It's beautiful. I love the way it smells, but it's not going to be for everybody. I honestly think you'll get more compliments wearing Hindu Kush than you would wearing Oud Musk, for example, but I don't want to put it to the test right now. Feel free to make a video on that and then link it to me. I'd love to check it out if you want to do that. But yeah, it's simply too strong, too potent to wear out in public. People are going to hate the way it smells on you, but you will meet people that do love the way it smells. Maybe at a farmer's market or something, out in the open, it's going to get better and more positive attention, but especially indoors, it's simply too strong. And it is too expensive at well over $200 Australian. Next up from 2021, we've got Rammstein's Cocaine Black Intense. This is a deeply leathery, smoky incense fragrance. Imagine the incense of Incense Avignon, for example, combined with a similar leatherish quality to Gucci Guilty Absolute. It is very animalic, very smoky, and it is the utmost extreme end of that smoky incense and leatherish vibe. It's a beautiful smelling fragrance. I've only ever smelled a sample of it, but it's not going to be for everybody. It's going to have a lot of people. There are going to be a lot of people out there that simply can't stand how strong it is. The projection for Black Intense is massive. It's a fantastic fragrance, a beautiful composition, but it's simply too strong to be worn out in public. It's also not a very common fragrance. I've never smelt it out in the wild before. It's very difficult to get here in Australia. But if you've tried it before, let me know in the comments below what would your use case be for that particular fragrance. Maybe a rave in a graveyard, rave in the grave. Is that a movie? That should be a movie. I think it might be a Return of the Dead movie. But if it isn't, maybe I should make it. And finally, from 2007, we've got Tom Ford's Japan Noir. This is a discontinued fragrance. It's very difficult to find nowadays, but I just thought Tuscan leather and ombre leather are too obvious of a pick for it. Vetiver spice, patchouli. It is a deeply dark, mysterious, and dense fragrance. If you like your patchoulis, your leathers, and your smokes, definitely try and find Japan Noir, but the pricing nowadays in particular, well over 500 bucks. You can still find samples of it quite regularly, especially on eBay, and you can get them for a good price. But I just know that this is the style of fragrance that people will shy away from. There is not a lot to it that's going to be mass appealing. That leather is simply too dense, the smoke is too strong, and the patchouli is too earthy and heady. Even though I love this fragrance, it's not going to get you a lot of positive attention. Not in a way that Tuscan leather or ombre leather are, at least. And it finishes tier 6 for today. Now we're moving into tier 7, the blackest depths. We are in such dark territory now. Things are going to get very interesting. We're now getting into the fragrances that I really wanted to talk about. It's almost as though you make a list like this to talk about the final 2 tiers, and I can't wait to talk about these. Starting off tier 7, we've got Zombie by Demeter. This is meant to smell like a zombie. It's been alleged that Demeter released this fragrance at the height of The Walking Dead's popularity. Zombies were mainstream, they were massive, and Demeter, being a library of fragrances, decided to create a fragrance that was much like a zombie. And what do they have here? They've got something that smells similar to Funeral Home, which is also by Demeter. It's damp, mossy, and a little floral as well. The fragrance itself isn't dark per se, but the fact that it's meant to represent a zombie, that it was meant to capitalize on the trend of zombies at the time. Zombies were everywhere, and I loved it. I personally can never get sick of zombies. Zombie is known for the mushroomy, earthy opening and a subtle smokiness right in the tail end of the scent. If you've ever smelt it before, let me know in the comments below. I've actually never smelt it personally, but I've read enough about it to know sort of where it's heading, and I love the concept, and I couldn't make a fragrance iceberg list and not include something like Zombie by Demeter. Next up, from 2022, we have Toscovats Inexcusable Evil. This fragrance is well known for smelling like balsamic vinegar, alcohol, blood, iodine, and smoke. There is nothing in this fragrance that's going to appeal to a wider audience. You may occasionally go to a vampire club or something, and I reckon it'll go down a treat in that sort of location, in that sort of environment, but out in the public, out in the wild, in a nice little cafe or a coffee shop, it is not going to be beloved at all. I haven't smelt this one personally, but in doing my research for this video, I had to include this one on the list. The name Inexcusable Evil, what an incredible name for a fragrance, and the notes themselves, with notes like gunpowder, blood, iodine, concrete, and incense, you're gonna have a fragrance that is very dark, very dense, and it's not going to be appealing to a lot of people. It's going to appeal to a bloke like me that would happily wear a fragrance like that, but again, it's not going to appeal to everyone, and that is why it's in tier 7. Next up, from 2009, we've got Nasomoto's Black Afghano, and I'll just read you out what it says on the back. This bottle of perfume is part of the project Nasomoto. The fragrance aims to evoke the best quality of hashish. It is the result of a quest to arouse the effects of temporary bliss. Here is the fragrance. It's one of my personal favorites. It is very dark, deep, and dense. Smoky. It is so smoky that it almost veers towards a sweet direction. It's an extrait de parfum. It is incredibly strong, it is incredibly dense. One spray of this lasts me 48 hours. I wore this on Boxing Day once when I worked at a clothing store, and it simply would not leave my skin no matter how hard I tried. But in saying that, I didn't want it to leave. It's a very dark fragrance. You're not going to meet many people that like the way that this one smells. Black Afghano is the perfect example of a fragrance that you wear to appease your own senses, and like it says on the box, this gives you that temporary bliss. It is a beautiful smelling smoky fragrance, resinous, deep, dark, alluring even. And of everything on tier 7, this is probably going to be the easiest to recommend if you're looking for somebody to perhaps like one of these darker style fragrances. It's also on a lot of people's radar as well. You may have smelt this one, but I doubt it. If you're after something dark, resinous and smoky, check this one out. It's very lavish and quite beautiful as well. It's a masterpiece. Next up, from 2019, we have Beaufort London's Terror and Magnificence. This smells like gunpowder and smoke. It is an incredibly dark, dense fragrance. Performance for this one is eternal. You spray this on your skin and it is going to stick to your skin like super glue. That is how strong this is. If you want to smell like gunpowder and smoke and blood, then definitely check out Terror and Magnificence. Beaufort London are well known for creating fragrances that leave a lasting impression, both on your senses and on your skin, because they won't leave your skin. One of the more popular fragrances in their collection is Fathom V. It's on the fresher side of things, but it's still a little niche, it's still esoteric. This, on the other hand though, Terror and Magnificence, it has everything you want in a deep, dark, mysterious fragrance. I hope that you actually try this one out on a sample, because it is such a beautiful composition, but there will be scant few that will appreciate the way it smells. Terror and Magnificence kind of reminds me of the show Taboo with Tom Hardy. If you could imagine the streets of London in like the 1800s at that time, this sort of reminds me of how that might have smelt like. It certainly creates an image in my head, and it evokes that sort of atmosphere, that dark, gritty atmosphere. And that brings us to the final fragrance on tier 7, 2012's Slumber House Norn. This fragrance was directly inspired by the music of black metal, the genre of music black metal. With notes of fir and incense, Norn is supposed to evoke the deep dark forests of Sweden and Norway and Denmark. It is meant to encapsulate the sound of black metal, very dissonant, atonal, harsh. It smells like a dark pine forest. It has a lot of beauty to it, but that beauty comes at a price. The fragrance itself will stain your skin. It's that dense with fragrance oil, and the performance is too strong. You only need a single spray of this. It functions more like a fragrance oil in how it sits on your skin, except that it projects like an actual fragrance. If you want something that smells both natural and as dark as it can possibly get, definitely check out Norn by Slumber House. It is supposed to be an absolute beast, and if you like the music of black metal, perhaps it should be on your radar anyway. Can you believe it? We've reached the very final tier of the iceberg, but you're gonna have to wait until the final video in this series. I was originally gonna break it up into just 2 parts, but that's so much work, and I know you guys have been waiting for a long time for this next part of the iceberg, this part that you're watching right now. So I decided I would split the video into 3 parts, with the final part just being the very last tier of the iceberg. And as with these icebergs, you've got to save the best for last, and these are the ones that I really wanted to talk about, so you're gonna have to wait just a little bit longer to watch that. But honestly guys, if you've reached this part of the video, this point of the video, let me know in the comments below. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you guys. And I know that it's taken a while to get this one out there. It's a lot of editing to do, and as you can see from the surrounding screen in Premiere Pro, I thought I would just record this little part as I've just finished the editing. I've said it once before, and I'll say it again, I do things a little differently here on YouTube than pretty much any other, fragrance slash fashion slash whatever I make sort of guy. I've always done things the way I wanted to do them, and I'm really thankful that I've been given this platform, that you guys have stuck with me enough through the changes in the channel and all of that. I feel like part of being a creator, especially here on YouTube, is self-evolution and growth, and it's been a real pleasure and a privilege even to kind of grow on the channel, and not a day goes by where I don't appreciate every single subscription, every single thumbs up, every single comment that I get here on YouTube. It really is a blessing, and I love what I do here, and I'm going to continue doing it. And I just wanted to say thank you to each and every one of you for watching my content over the years. Thank you to each and every one of you that has subscribed, that has left a like, has dropped a comment. It is a blessing, it truly is, and I'm just thankful that I've been given the platform to make the sort of content that I want to make. So thank you from the very bottom of my heart, and I really hope that you enjoy the final tier of the iceberg when I release it. So until the next video, my name is Aussie Marcel, and I'll catch you guys around.